Good morning, everyone. Today we are going to be discussing in our economics the second unit 2 as theories of consumer behavior. Theories of consumer behavior. This is the second unit. So, what is actually the theories of consumer behavior? So, let us know the introduction. Let us discuss about the introduction of this unit. So, here in this, consumption is the mainly. So, consumption is the main basis for entire economic activity. Consumption is the main basis for entire economic యాక్టివిటీ. సో మన ఏ ఎకనామిక్ యాక్టివిటీని చేయాలన్నా కూడా అంటే డబ్బు సంపాదించాలి. సో ఏ ఎకనామిక్ యాక్టివిటీస్ చేయాలన్నా కూడా దేనికోసం చేస్తున్నాము? కన్సంప్షన్ అంటే మనకు వస్తు సేవల్ని కొనుక్కొని మన కోరికలు తీర్చుకోవడానికి మనం ఏం చేస్తున్నాము? కన్సంప్షన్ అనేది. సో హియర్ ఎకనామిక్ యాక్టివిటీస్ పార్టిసిపేట్ చేస్తున్నాం. So consumption is the main basis for all economic activities here. So why we are going to be participating of this particular economic activities? To satisfy the human being wants. To satisfy the human being wants. One wants to consume. So to satisfy the human being wants. మన కోరికను తీసుకోవడానికి మనం ఏం చేస్తున్నాం? వస్తు సేవల్ని వినియోగిస్తున్నాం. To satisfy human being wants, one must need to use the goods and services which is going to be having its utility, which is going to be having the utility, usefulness. By using of this particular goods and services, we are going to be satisfying of our human being wants here. So here the aim of this unit, especially the aim of this second unit, the theories of consumer behavior, mainly what it will be to study the what is actually the utility and what are the different number of utility approaches are there. What are the different number of utility approaches are there, and the consumer behavior with the help of. So how the consumer behavior? So with the help of, we are going to be studying the law of diminishing marginal utility, law of equimarginal utility, and the theories of the indifference curve analysis. Based on the indifference curve analysis, we are going to be learning the theories of consumer behavior. These are called it as what here? Theories of consumer behavior. So how the consumer behavior? How the consumer behavior? So with the help of, we are going to be studying in this unit, especially by using of this different number of theories. That is theories of law of diminishing marginal utility, law of equimarginal utility, and the indifference curve analysis here. So let us know especially what is actually, we are saying it as an utility. So the first concept we are discussed as utility. So what is actually the utility here? What is actually the utility? So general meaning we have discussed in the previous unit. What is actually the utility? Utility means generally we are going to be saying it as an usefulness of any commodity or the service is called it as an what here? Utility we have been discussed here. So the concept of utility was when it has been introduced, so we have to know in detail regarding what is actually the utility here. So the concept of utility was introduced in economics. The concept of utility is introduced in economic thought by G1 in the year of 1871. In the year of 1871, the concept of utility the concept of utility was introduced in economics. Was introduced in economic thoughts by G1 G1 is an economist name. G1 in 1871. In 1871 here, by G1 in the year of 1871 here. So in general sense, utility is a want satisfying power of a commodity. So in generally what we have discussed, utility means the want satisfying power of a commodity or a service is called it as an it's a utility. So general meaning of utility is what here? General meaning of utility is general meaning of utility is the want satisfying power of a commodity or service. The want satisfying power of a commodity or service. So general meaning of utility means what here? Utility is the want satisfying power of a commodity or service is called it as an it's a utility here. It's a utility. In economic sense, this is in the general sense. So in economic sense, what is actually the utility? What is actually the utility? Utility is a psychological phenomenon. Utility is a psychological phenomenon. In economic sense, in economic sense, utility is a psychological phenomenon. So, in economic meaning of a utility means what here? Utility is a psychological phenomenon. అంటే ఏంటి? అదొక సైకలాజికల్ ఫీలింగ్. అంటే మనకు మనస్తత్వాన్ని బట్టి అది మనం అనుభవిస్తున్న ఫీలింగ్ అన్నమాట. So, here it is a psychological phenomenon. It is a feeling of satisfaction and also it is a feeling of satisfaction. It is a feeling of satisfaction. ఇట్ ఈస్ ఫీలింగ్ ఆఫ్ అవర్ సాటిస్ఫాక్షన్. అంటే ఏంటి? మన ఫీలింగ్స్ ఎంతవరకు మనం సాటిస్ఫై చేసుకోగలిగాము దాన్ని ఏమంటున్నాము? ఇట్ ఈస్ అ ఫీలింగ్ ఆఫ్ సాటిస్ఫాక్షన్. సో హియర్ ఏ కన్స్యూమర్, ఇట్ ఈస్ అ ఫీలింగ్ ఆఫ్ సాటిస్ఫాక్షన్. ఏ కన్స్యూమర్ derives from the consumption of commodity. A consumer derives, a consumer is going to be deriving from the consumption of a commodity. It is a feeling of satisfaction. A consumer can derive, a consumer can derive, a consumer can derive derives from the consumption of commodity, from the consumption of commodity. So here in economic meaning, what we are saying, utility is a psychological phenomenon. It is a psychological phenomenon. It is a feeling of satisfaction. We have satisfied up to level. So here it is a feeling of satisfaction. A consumer can derive. A consumer can derive from where we are getting. Here a consumer is going to be deriving. We are going to be getting by using of consumption of commodity. Consumption of commodity or service, we are going to be feeling of the satisfaction. That can be called it as a what here? Utility of that particular commodity. So a commodity may satisfy a human being wants or it may not be satisfying. So here that but it is in the it is becomes a useful here. So that any commodity which we are going to be using, so that commodity can be satisfying of a human being want or it may not be. So but it is going to be having its usefulness in the sense what here? Utility. So here for example, wine is harmful to health. Wine is a harmful to health but satisfy the want of a drunkards here. తాగుబోతులకి ఈ వైన్ అంటే ఏంటి? మందు ఏదైతే ఉందో ఆల్కహాల్ ఏం చేస్తుంది? తాగుబోతుకి అయితే అది సాటిస్ఫాక్షన్ అనేది ఇస్తుంది. సో వెన్ ఇట్ ఈస్ హార్మ్ఫుల్ టు హెల్త్ అంటే ఏంటి? మన హెల్త్కి అది మంచిది కాకపోయినా కూడా ఇంజూరియస్ అంటే ఏంటి? మన హెల్త్ని పాడు చేస్తుంది వైన్ అనేది. అవునా? తాగుబోతులకి ఏమవుతుంది? అది సాటిస్ఫాక్షన్ అనేది ఇస్తుంది. అవునా? తాగుబోతులకి ఏంటి? మందు తాగడం వల్ల వాళ్ళకి సాటిస్ఫాక్షన్ అనేది వస్తుంది. ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్, వైన్ ఈజ్ హార్మ్ఫుల్. Wine is harmful to health but satisfy the wants of a drunkards. By satisfy the wants of a drunkards. So when the whether the good is useful or not here, whether good is going to be useful or not. If not satisfies, we are saying it is a possess here. It possesses the utility. So if you are not going to be satisfying of our human being wants, what we are saying here, it is not going to be possessing its utility. It is not going to be possessing its utility we are calling here. So utility is one of the subjective concept. Utility is a subjective concept. It is going to be differ from one person to the another person, and from time to time and place to place also it is going to be making the difference here. Utility is going to be utility is going to be differ from the one person to another person, and one time to the another time, and one place to the another time. It is going to be getting the differentiation here. As regard as the measures of utility, it is going to be measuring of a utility. There are two types of a utility: cardinal utility and ordinal utility. Two types of utility. Two types of utility. Two types of utility. One is of cardinal utility, another one is of ordinal utility. Cardinal utility. That the another one is called it as in what here? Ordinal utility. Ordinal. OR. Cardinal utility and ordinal utility here. So here let us introduce of this particular in brief here. So here what is actually the cardinal utility? In detail we are going to be discussing about. So what is actually, mainly the utility has been divided into two categories. One is of cardinal utility, that the other one is called as an ordinal utility. So let us discuss in detail regarding what is actually the cardinal utility and what is actually the ordinal utility. So let us discuss in detail regarding what is actually the cardinal utility. Utility is cardinal in the sense, utility is cardinal in the sense that utility is measured. Utility is cardinal in the sense that utility is measured in terms of units. That utility is measured in terms of units. Call it as an utils. Call it as an utils. According to the concept of cardinal utility, according to the concept of cardinal utility. So the utility derived from the utility derived from the consumption of good. Consumption of good can be expressed in terms of numbers. In terms of numbers such as 1, 2, 3, 4 and so on is called it as an cardinal utility. So utility is cardinal in the sense utility is cardinal in the sense utility is cardinal in the sense so that utility is measurable in terms of units. That utility is measurable in terms of units. In terms of units called utils. Utility is cardinal in the sense that utility is measured. That utility is measurable in terms of units called utils. In terms of units. Unit, 1 unit, 2 unit, so that units is called utils. Units is called utils. According to the concept of cardinal utility. According to the concept of utility. According to the concept of utility. The utility derived from the consumption. The utility derived from the from the consumption of a good, consumption of a good, of a good can be expressed, good can be expressed, good can be expressed in terms of numbers, in terms of numbers called 1, 2, 3, 4 and so on. 1, 2, 3, 4 and so on is called cardinal utility. So utility is cardinal in the sense, utility is cardinal in the sense that utility is measurable. That utility is measurable in terms of units. In terms of units called utils. In terms of units called utils. According to the concept of cardinal utility. According to the concept of cardinal utility, the utility derived from the consumption of good, the utility derived means what here we are getting, consumption of a good can be expressed, any good which we are going to be using, that utility can be expressed in terms of units, terms of numbers, నంబర్ రూపంలో అంటే ఏంటి సంఖ్యా రూపంలో మన ఒక వస్తువుని వినియోగించడం వల్ల మనకు వచ్చిన తృప్తిని ఏదైతే ఉందో ఆ తృప్తిని మనం సంఖ్యా రూపంలో వ్యక్తపరచడాన్ని ఏమంటున్నాము, కార్డినల్ యూటిలిటీ అని అంటున్నాము. ఒక వ్యక్తి ఒక వస్తువును కనుక వినియోగించడం వల్ల ఆ వినియోగించిన వస్తువు వల్ల అతడికి వచ్చిన అతడు చెందిన సంతృప్తిని కనుక సంఖ్యా రూపంలో వ్యక్తపరిస్తే దాన్ని కార్డినల్ యూటిలిటీ అని అంటాం. తెలుగులో కూడా కార్డినల్ యూటిలిటీ అని అంటారు. So what is actually the cardinal utility? So utility is cardinal in the sense that utility is measurable in terms of units, called it as an utils. Units రూపంలో చెప్తాం. సో దాన్ని ఏమంటున్నాం, utils అని అంటున్నాం. So according to the concept of cardinal utility, so the utility is derived from the consumption of a good. Consumption of a good can be expressed in terms of numbers. In terms of numbers లో మన satisfaction levels అనేది express చేస్తున్నాం. We are expressing our satisfaction levels in the form of an numbers by using of one of the commodity is called it as a cardinal utility. So by it can be expressed in the form of an what, 1, 2, 3, 4 and so on. Means what here, up to infinity, anything you can express here. So here that the, for example, we can say that we are going to be saying that deriving the utility equals to 10 units from the consumption of 1 unit equals to 10 units from consumption of 1 unit. అంటే ఒక యాపిల్ తీసుకోవడం వల్ల 10 units of satisfaction వచ్చింది. If we are going to be taking off 1 apple, I am going to be getting the 10 units of satisfaction. So what you are going to be, example what we can take, if I am going to be taking off 1 apple, I got the satisfaction levels of 10 units. 10 units. So 10 units from the consumption of 1 unit of a commodity. So A and 5 units. Suppose A, B, C are there. Suppose for example, we are taking A, B, C. 3 persons we had here. So by eating of the 1 apple by each person, so apple is a same common good which will be using by all the people here. But 1 apple they are taking. అంటే ఏంటి, యాపిల్ అనేది ఒకే రకమైనటువంటి వస్తువు వేరు వేరు వ్యక్తులు తీసుకోవడం వల్ల it is going to be getting the different units of satisfaction by different persons. A, B, C are the different persons. So 1 apple they are eating. So A is going to be getting of 5 units of satisfaction. B is getting 10 units of satisfaction. C is getting 15 units of satisfaction. Means the satisfaction levels is going to be differ from person to person, place to place and the time to time. The utility is going to differ or not here. So the utility of any commodity may be differ from person to person, place to place and the time to time here. A of 5 units from the consumption of 1 unit of a commodity be here. So we can compare the commodities and express which can give the more utility to satisfy here. So by expressing like this way, so which commodity is going to be giving them as a more satisfaction than the another one here. So here Alfred Marshall followed this cardinal utility approach. Who had been followed this utility approach? Alfred Marshall. Alfred Marshall has followed this utility approach here. So here what he will be based on that, he had been defined the law of diminishing marginal utility, law of equimarginal utility. So the two laws which he had been expressed, based on the cardinal utility approach. One is the law of diminishing marginal utility, the another one is the law of equimarginal utility. The law of diminishing marginal utility, the law of diminishing marginal utility. The law of diminishing marginal utility. The other one, the law of equimarginal utility. The law of equimarginal utility. The law of diminishing marginal utility, the law of equimarginal utility. In Telugu we are calling the law of diminishing marginal utility is Kshinopanta Prayojana Sutramu. Kshinopanta Prayojana Sutramu. Law of diminishing marginal utility. A law of equimarginal utility is called as an Samopanta Prayojana Sutramu. Samopanta Prayojana Sutramu. Kshinopanta Prayojana, diminishing, Kshinapu, Taggadamu. So, the law of diminishing marginal utility is Kshinopanta Prayojana Sutramu. The law of equimarginal utility is Samopanta Prayojana Sutramu. Samopanta Prayojana Sutramu. So, these are the two laws which has been explained by based on the Alfred Marshall by taking the cardinal utility approach here. Based on the cardinal utility approach, the Alfred Marshall has been defined of these particular two laws, the law of equimarginal utility and also the law of equimarginal utility here. So let us know what is actually the cardinal utility, ordinal utility. The second type, what is the ordinal utility? This is of cardinal utility. The next one, ordinal utility. The second type is called ordinal, O-R-D-I-N-A-L, O-R-D-I-N-A-L, ordinal utility. So let us discuss what is actually the ordinal utility. Utility is ordinal in the sense, that utility is derived from the consumption of a commodity. Consumption of a commodity cannot be measured quantitatively, but can be compared by giving the ranks. Means that utility is obtained by the consumer. From different commodities. Can be assumed in the serial order, such as first, second, third, fourth, etc. Here, etc. means what here? Up to infinity. So here utility is ordinal sense. Utility is ordinal in the sense that utility is derived from the commodity, derived from the consumption of a commodity. That utility is derived from the consumption of a commodity. Consumption of a commodity. Consumption of a commodity cannot be measured quantitatively. Cannot be cannot be measured quantitatively. Cannot be measured quantitatively, but can be compared by giving ranks. But can be compared by giving ranks. But can be compared by giving ranks in a serial order. In a serial order. In a serial order, such as first, second, third, fourth, so on. First, second, third, fourth, and so on is called it as in what here? That the ordinal utility. So ordinal utility means what here? Utility is ordinal in the sense. Utility is ordinal in the sense. So here that utility is derived. Utility ఏ విధంగా వస్తుంది మనకి? Usefulness. From where we are going to be getting? By using of one of the commodity. So that utility is derived. From where we are going to be deriving? From one of the commodity. So from the consumption of a commodity cannot be measured. అంటే ఇది మనం సంఖ్యా రూపంలో వ్యక్తపరచలేము దాన్ని. ఒక వస్తువుని వినియోగించడం వల్ల సంఖ్యా రూపంలో వ్యక్తపరచలేనటువంటి సాటిస్ఫాక్షన్ ని ఏమంటున్నాం ఇక్కడ? ఆర్డినల్ యూటిలిటీ అని అంటున్నాం. So here the consumption of a commodity cannot be measured. It cannot be measured quantitatively. Quantity in the form of and what here? We cannot measure in the form of numbers. We cannot measure in the form of numbers. Is called it as an ordinal utility. But can be compared. We cannot measure in the form of numbers, but we can compare. But we can compare by giving the ranks, different number of commodities. When we are going to be using the different number of commodities, so each commodity, how much satisfaction level it will be given, we are not going to be measuring in the form of numbers, but can be comparing one commodity how much satisfaction it has been given, that the another commodity how much satisfaction it has been given here. So suppose take the example, your favorite things. Suppose take the 4 fruits, mango, apple, banana, guava. So like that, if we are going to be taking the 4 fruits, apple, banana, mango, guava, which one is your what here priority? Means మీకు చాలా ఇష్టమైనది, మీకు ఏదైతే చాలా ఇష్టమైన ఫ్రూట్ ఉందో, so you are like most you are going to be liking which fruit, so that will be giving more satisfaction for you here. So that the other fruits are going to be giving the less satisfactions for you here. So here by this particular thing we can express. So the satisfaction levels of our favorite fruit is going to be giving the more satisfaction than the other fruit which we are not going to be liking here. Isn't it or not? So here what will be happening at that particular time? So the satisfaction levels we cannot measure by giving the number we are not going to be expressing here. So we are going to be comparing by giving as in the form of ranks here. By giving in the form of ranks, like first one. This is the most priority one. This is the second priority one. This is the third priority one. Like that here. So the serial order we are going to be giving, such as first, second, third, and fourth here. First, second, third, and fourth. Which is the most favorite for you, and which is the favorite for you, which is the liking for you, which is the dislike for you. Like that we are going to be giving the ranks here. So that is called it as an what here? Ordinal utility here. So these numbers tell us the second. These numbers like first, second, third, fourth, so these numbers, what it is going to be telling us here? These numbers are going to be telling us that the second number is more than that the first number. When we are going to be 2 minus 1, 1. 2 minus 1 means what? 1 here. So 3 minus 1, 2 means what here? So one number, the second number, when we are going to be comparing from the first, so when we are comparing from the first commodity to the second commodity, so the number is more here, more than the first number. The second number is more than the first number. It is not possible how much, as they are not measured here. How much we cannot measure here. How much it is greater here? 4, 5, 3, 2, like that we cannot measure here. So JRX and RJD alone. JRX and RJD alone. J.R. Hicks and R.J.D. Allen have used of this particular ordinal approach here. Who had been used of this particular ordinal approach? J.R. Hicks and J.R. Hicks and R.J.D. Allen. J.R. Hicks and R.J.D. Allen has been used of this particular ordinal approach here. So here, based on this, the indifference curve analysis is based on the ordinal approach. Example, the indifference curve analysis. The indifference curve analysis. The indifference curve analysis is based on the ordinal approach explained by whom here? J.R. Hicks and R.J.D. Allen. With this, the topic has been finished here. So then we are going to discussing in the next class next topic.